Hi, this is Andrew Maurer, Interactive Media Coordinator at the Smith College Imaging Center, and I'm going to show you how to use the Blob brush tool in Adobe Illustrator to design a woodcut that you can then carve on the ShopBot CNC machine in the Department of Art woodshop. With this method, you can draw a design from scratch, or you can make edits to a file you've generated elsewhere, such as a vector halftone you made by following the Imaging Center's Creating a Vector Halftone tutorial. This is an example of the Blob brush in action, and you can see that what it does is allow you to draw organic shapes, which in itself is maybe not that interesting, but what makes it useful for our purposes is that whenever you draw another stroke with the same color as something that's already there, the Blob brush tool will combine the two into a single outline, and that plays very well with the CNC. So if I click on this, you can see that this whole thing has sort of become one single shape. So when you're designing your woodcut, the basic idea here is that you're using the Blob brush as your carving tool. So you're creating shapes that represent the area that will be carved away in the final print. So if you wanted to go back after making some strokes with the Blob brush tool to effectively put wood back where you carved it away, you can do that with the eraser tool. As I make a stroke with my eraser, you can see what's happening is that with the Blob brush you are carving the areas that you want to become white, and with the eraser you are sort of putting back areas that you actually want to stay black. When you open a new file in Illustrator, it's going to look like this with a white background. So to make this all visually make sense, it's best to first set up your Illustrator artboard with a black background. So to do that, you can go to File, and then Document Setup, and then click this option that says Simulate Colored Paper. And then you also need to click this top color box here and set that to black, which I'm going to do just by dragging this slider over and then closing this window. Now when you close out of this by clicking OK, you should see that your artboard's background has been made black. However, there is some kind of silly minor display bug in Illustrator where this may not happen until you zoom in and out. So to do that, zoom in and then out using the Command key and the plus key to zoom in, and then the Command key and the minus key to zoom out. And you can see that for some reason it took a little zooming to make that look like it was supposed to. The Command key is on Mac, by the way. If you're on Windows, it would be Control and the plus key and Control minus for zooming in and out. If you're designing your print from scratch, you will want to set the dimensions so that the size of your artboard matches the size of your woodblock. To do that, you can first of all hit the V key on your keyboard, which is the equivalent of clicking this button in the upper left-hand corner, which puts Illustrator into sort of a default select mode. And then just click anywhere that's an empty spot on your work area, which will just make sure that no object is selected. Next, you can go over to the right-hand side of the screen and click the button that says Edit Artboards. And then in here, in these two fields, you can set the width and the height of your woodblock. So if my woodblock is 9 by 12 inches, I will put in 12 for the width and 9 for the height. And then I'll hit the V key again on the keyboard to go back into the default select tool. And there you have it. I now have my digital version of my woodblock that I can digitally carve on using the Blob brush tool. So to use the Blob brush tool, you can switch to it by clicking and holding down on the paintbrush icon on the left. By default, you may see this regular paintbrush. If you click and hold on this icon, you can select the Blob brush tool. You can also get there by holding the Shift key and pressing B as in brush on your keyboard. So Shift B will get you there as well. You will want to set the fill color of your brush to white, which you can do by double clicking on this little fill square down here and then simply dragging this color selector up into the corner, and you'll get white. And now when I draw, you can see, again, I'm sort of carving the white areas into my woodblock, so to speak. To change the size of the brush, you can hold the square bracket keys on your keyboard. The left square bracket is going to make the brush smaller. That's what I'm doing now. The right square bracket is going to make the brush bigger. And you can also hold down those keys to make that happen more quickly. So I'm going to make a very large brush. And so at this point, the next step is just to basically create your design as you see fit. So if you wanted to go back after making some strokes with the Blob brush tool to effectively put wood back where you carved it away, you can do that with the eraser tool, which is over here on the left, and which you can also get to by typing Shift E as in eraser. So I'm going to click here. And now, as I make a stroke with my eraser, you can see what's happening is that my white strokes are getting cut away, and I again am seeing black in those areas. So this is a little counterintuitive, but with the Blob brush, you are carving the areas that you want to become white, and with the eraser, you are sort of putting back areas that you actually want to stay black. If you are starting with a vector halftone file, or any other vector graphics file for that matter, the steps are pretty much the same. But I'll go through the process again quickly just so you see it with the vector graphics file. What you'll do is open up the SVG file you downloaded from the Hello Halftones app. Mine is right here. And you can see it's probably going to look something like this with white dots on a white background. So the first thing you'll do is set up the artboard background to black as we did before, which again you can do by going to File, then Document Setup, then Simulate Colored Paper, and change this top color box to black. I'll close this and click OK. And now, as expected, there is a silly error where we have to zoom in and out. But once I do that, you can see that this looks correct. Next, you can make sure that nothing is selected and go to Edit Artboards and then set the width and height, width here, height here, of your woodblock. So I'm going to just pretend that my woodblock again is 9 by 12 inches. Next, I hit the V key to switch back into sort of default select mode. And now you can see that all of my dots, I click and drag on them. They're all grouped together, but they are no longer the right size to fill my woodblock. So I can simply drag them up to the upper left-hand corner and then go down to the corner of my selection here and drag down. I'm actually going to go off the edge of my artboard just slightly so that I think that will look more natural if some of the halftone dots are cut off on the edge. Now, if I wanted to start editing this with the Blob brush tool, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so it's easier to see. You can use the Blob brush tool just the same way as we did before. I'm going to click on it over here. I could also get there by hitting Shift B as in brush on the keyboard. I make sure that my fill color is set to white so that it matches the dots that are already here. And then I'll make my brush a bit smaller. And maybe I would just want to start, for some reason, drawing some sort of horizontal lines in here. And so I'm going through with my blob brush and carving away and carving away, and anything that I am making white will be cut away, just the same as would happen with a carving tool in a traditional woodcut. Now, once I've done whatever I want to do to my image, I will go to File, Save As. I'm going to save on my computer, and I'm going to give this a different name so that I have my original SVG file preserved. I'm going to save it wherever. I'll save it on my desktop. Saving it as an SVG is just fine. And you can just click OK here. And now that file that you just saved can be processed using the CNC software and turned into a woodcut.